Welcome to this guided breathing technique that I call the breath of acceptance. My name is Berg, and if you give me 12 to 15 minutes of your time, I will show you something that might well be one of the best techniques to relieving stress, getting out of anxiety, and getting back in touch with yourself and reality. So, this breathing technique is probably one of the most complex breathing techniques I know, which basically just means that it consists of 2 in-breaths, 2 out-breaths, and a pause. So, I guess that tells you a little bit about how complex breathwork really is. So, to start with, I'd like to just explain a little bit about your nervous system and your breath, so you understand what we're doing here. Most of us in modern times are chronically in the sympathetic nervous system. And that name is kind of deceitful because it sort of sounds like this nervous part of our nervous system is very sympathetic and friendly. But it is actually the part of our nervous system that is geared for fight, flight, or freeze. And by downregulating our nervous system, we can get into what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs such things as restitution, digestion, relaxation, building muscle and tissue, sleep, and sex. At least the beginning of sex. And the best way to downregulate our nervous system is by using the breath. You can see the breath as sort of the gear shift of your mind. And you can downregulate your breath by focusing on deep breathing and prolonging the out breath. And this should ideally be done in a mindful manner, so you focus completely on this. And there should also be a degree of freedom to decide how is best to govern your breath moment to moment. So to start with, as I mentioned, the breath of acceptance consists of 2 in-breaths, 2 out-breaths, and a pause, but they should ideally be deep, and we should especially focus on trying to make the first in and out breath deep. So what does this actually mean? You often hear people talk about breathing into your stomach, and that is a metaphor, because you can't really breathe into your stomach. You can expand your lungs downwards through what's called diaphragmatic breathing, and when that happens, they push your intestines down, and when they can't get any further down, they'll push your stomach outwards. So that is, in opposition to breathing into your chest. So how do you breathe deeply? Well, there's a couple of techniques you can use. And the first one and the most important one to focus on is to use some sort of resistance in your lips, mouth, or throat to just put a little bit of work into getting the air in, and that will usually, stimulate a deeper breathing. So it can sound many ways, but if you use the back of the throat, it would sound like this. So that's the most important part of getting the deep breathing, and if you keep on doing that, that should make your breathing deeper and deeper. But another way is to, before you go to the in-breath, you could push all of the air in your lungs out and then release in sort of a sudden manner, and then it will tend to let the air fall into the bottom of your lungs instead of drawing it into your chest. So it could sound something like this. And if you noticed, I sort of made a couple of small pushes when I didn't have much more air left by the end of the out-breath. So that would mean that our first in-breath could sound something like this. Well, that means with the beginning sort of starting with pushing the air out. So that is our first in-breath, and it doesn't need to be that prolonged, but because of the resistance, it'll probably be a little longer than a normal in-breath. And then perhaps the most important part of the breath of acceptance is the out-breath. And here, well, come to think about it, I usually say they're all equally important, but the out-breath with a resistance is usually the most essential part of downregulating the nervous system. So if you just make it as long as you feel comfortable, it could sound something like this. And it's okay to clear your throat as well. And while we are exhaling very, very prolonged and slowly, the pressure around our heart is, constantly both low and also steadily going down. And that helps our pulse, also reducing. So the first in and out breath with, pushing the air out of the lungs in the beginning would sound something like this. And then the next in and out breath is really, really simple, because they are, completely up to you to govern. So for me, it would usually be in the form of a relieved sigh. Feel free to just let whatever sound feels natural come out. Vibrations from your throat also has effects on our body. And when you emote from your voice, it doesn't only, orient your surroundings of what you're feeling, but it also has sort of a self-orienting effect. So it becomes it's like a positive spiral. So now we have one in and out breath with some resistance, where the out breath is prolonged, and then an in and out breath that you decide yourself, and then we'll just have a pause by the end. And that pause is, for you to just sit in the stillness between breaths and try to really notice when you actually feel the urge to breathe. So in that way, we are sort of pausing the automatic rhythm of our breathing. And instead of just letting our breathing continue in this rhythm, we are putting on, a curious break to see if it's actually necessary for us to breathe in this rhythm. And so that's the breath of acceptance. And I will, just guide us through this breath, and I will also have a recording of myself doing the breath in the background, and feel free to follow along. Of course, this is really not a breathing technique that is suitable for guidance, because ideally all of these different parts of the breath of acceptance should be done in the exact cadence and also just, preference of how you feel moment to moment. And that is also some of what makes it effective, because you need to stay present and curious to figure out how you're going to do each part, each round. And also, that means that you will not get stressed out by either somebody else breathing too fast or too slow for your specific nervous system. And for example, a person who is very large will have a tendency of needing to breathe more, of course, less than a person who is smaller. So, I will invite you to take a hand and place it on your stomach, perhaps with the thumb right around your navel and the rest of your hand below. So you can just keep an eye on how deep your breathing gets. And in some of us, you should know, don't really breathe like this at all, really. So it can feel a little, perhaps frustrating that you don't feel your stomach expanding. But I will invite you to just stay with the process and be curious and not judge yourself. It will come in time if you practice. So let's do the breath of acceptance together, and I will guide you and have a recording of myself in the background that you can also follow. Now squeeze the air out of your lungs, and an in-breath with resistance, and a prolonged out-breath with resistance, as long as you can manage comfortably. And now breathe exactly as you prefer, and putting on a bit of sound is just right. And now a curious pause between breaths, and push out the air. In breath with some resistance, and then a long out breath with resistance. Just enjoy letting the air slowly release from your lungs. And now, exactly as you prefer, in and out. Perhaps with a relieved sigh, and then our curious pause. When will we need breath again? And when we do, we just gently push the air out of our lungs. And then in-breath with resistance. And then long, prolonged out-breath that we just enjoy, feeling how our body is becoming relaxed. And our pulse is falling. And then a breath in and out as you prefer. And then our curious pause. When will you need to breathe again? And this time feel free to skip pushing the last of the air into your lungs and just take an in-breath with some resistance. And a long out-breath with resistance. And then just feel free to breathe exactly as feels right to you. And enjoy sitting in the stillness between breaths. So that is basically the breath of acceptance. And you should feel a little bit more relaxed now. But let's keep this going for a couple more minutes so you can try out the technique for yourself. I think you should know it by heart by now. 1 in-breath with some resistance, perhaps a little longer than normal, and then a very long out-breath as long as you can manage comfortably with resistance. Then an in and an out breath, exactly as you prefer and that your body calls for in the moment. Then a curious pause where you just sit and enjoy the stillness and await the urge to breathe, or just perhaps the preference to breathe. So feel free to go ahead and start doing the breathing technique. And I will invite you to let something that is present in your life for you right now fill your mind as you breathe out. And just accept that it is however it is, and that you're not attending to it right now. And the next time that you are going to do your in-breath and out-breath, just let this part of your life, reduce in size and volume and increase in distance, so it sort of gets further and further away, and accept that it is how it is, but you're not attending to it right now. You can come back to it. And feel free to, once again, have this aspect of your life become present for you, but now in this very much smaller form, further away. And just, let it slip from your mind with respect and accept that it is how it is, but it is far away right now. Right now, you are here in the present with your breath, becoming more calm and more centered and in contact with yourself and the real world. If you have some resistance to this exercise, or just sitting here using time for yourself, or perhaps feeling the need to attend to something, just accept all these feelings and let them be. They are exactly how they are, but you are not attending to them right now. Right now, you are here focusing on your breath and getting in touch with yourself in reality. Even positive aspects of your life that can feel hard to let go of. Just know that you can come back, but it's not the time for this right now. Let them fall in the background and away with your out-breath. And just become present with your breathing and this exercise as you accept things as they are, and know that you don't attend to them right now. Right now, you are getting back into a relaxed state, or at least more relaxed state, and getting in contact with yourself and reality. Remember, the breathing technique is one in-breath with resistance, a long, prolonged out-breath with resistance, and then an in and out breath, just as you prefer in the moment, and then a curious pause, where you just sit and wait for any need or desire to breathe to arise before you start the exercise again. Become aware of how your body is slowly being, geared down into a relaxed state. And the natural, spontaneous joy there is in being more relaxed and more calm. Sometimes we can even have anxiety of becoming more relaxed. What if we forget something? What if we, have fear of missing out? What if something goes wrong? Well, what if we forget about the beautiful state of being calm, balanced, and have a clear view of what needs to be done? Being relaxed is fun. Being relaxed is, at least can be, almost religious or ecstatic experience. And you don't need any religion or drugs to find this. You have it right in your breath. Thank you so much for letting me invite you into this guided breathing session. This is the breath of acceptance, and I will challenge you to use it as often as possible to downregulate your nervous system and becoming more relaxed and more in contact with yourself and reality. And use it in the morning, use it in the evening, use it when you need it. But I would say try to do it consistently for a couple of weeks at least. And perhaps add a couple of minutes every time, so you end up having 15 to 20 minutes. And by then you will probably feel a complete difference in your nervous system. My name is Berg. I hope you'll be very good to yourself and the people around you